Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our monthly public meeting at Los Angeles Normal. Today is our last public chapter meeting of the year, and we really actually have a very special program for you today. So I know that most of us are very anxious to put 2020 in our rear view mirrors, but it would be disingenuous to imply that 2020 was anything other than a success when it comes to cannabis reform. So while COVID-19 dominated the headlines, cannabis was making headlines of its own. Very quickly at the beginning of the pandemic, if you all remember, nearly every city or state that had legalized cannabis rapidly moved to declare cannabis and its workforce an essential medicine and service. So the closing months of the year have brought in 5 new states that approved ballot measures to legalize recreational or medical cannabis, bringing the total to 35. The United Nations voted to remove cannabis from the 1961 Single Convention on narcotic drugs and recognize its value as a medicine. This is huge. So we're going to be discussing some of these successes and more, along with what may be on the horizon for 2020 with our Director of Government Affairs, Hirsch Jane. Today, we're also going to discuss compassionate care. At Los Angeles Normal, we have started a patient compassionate care program that brings together the legal cannabis industry, nonprofit partners, and the consumer cannabis community to provide medicine, fellowship, and charitable services to veterans and cannabis patients in need. So our goal is to establish multiple persistent locations throughout the greater LA area and beyond, where in-need veterans and patients can access compassionate donations made possible through California state law SB34, also known as the Dennis Peron and Brownie Mary Act. Very briefly, SB 34 established a process by which licensed cannabis companies can donate legal and tested products to eligible patients. But 8 months after its implementation in March of 2020, there's still very little industry participation, with only a handful of advocacy groups actively working to meet the needs of patients. Our Director of Veterans Affairs, Eric Gopel, will discuss SB 34 and how we are moving this initiative forward at Los Angeles Normal. Today, we're also going to talk about something that's very important to everyone here on the team at Normal, and that is social equity. As the largest cannabis-friendly city on the planet, there's little doubt that Los Angeles has significant cannabis dollars flowing through its streets. The city of Los Angeles is also one of the few jurisdictions in the United States attempting to address the impacts of past cannabis policies and their inequities by developing and implementing cannabis policies that seek to center equity in cannabis policy reform. The stated goal of LA's social equity program is to promote equitable ownership and employment opportunities in the cannabis industry in order to decrease disparities in life outcomes for marginalized communities and to address the disproportionate impact of the war on drugs in those communities. So we ask ourselves, has it been working? And how has it been received by the people that it was created for? So we're going to be discussing the status of LA's social equity program with our very own Director of Social Equity, Luis Rivera. And we're also going to be meeting an equity applicant today to try and gain some understanding of how this program is working here in Los Angeles. So before we get started with any of that great education, I'd like to recognize the team here at Los Angeles Normal that's responsible for everything that we do. I'd also like to let you know that Los Angeles Normal is an all-volunteer organization. So it's really important to remember that these people are all volunteering their time to push forward with the much-needed reform to our cannabis laws in Los Angeles, California, and at the national level. They are here working for our community, and so we really appreciate you supporting us back. So very briefly, our team consists of the legendary Bruce Margolin, who founded Los Angeles Normal in 1973, and he is our Director Emeritus. Elizabeth Mack is our RN and Director of Health and Wellness. Sharon Sperber is our Director of Membership and Growth. Hirsch Jane, our Director of Government Affairs. Brett Mackhomer, our Director of Technology. Nicholas Castelli, our Director of Communications. Eric Gopel, our Director of Veterans Affairs, Dr. Swathi Varanasi as our Director of Medicine, and Luis Rivera as our Director of Social Equity. And my name is Ian Rassman, and I'm the Executive Director here at Los Angeles Normal, and your very, very grateful host today. So to get things started, I'd like to introduce you to Hirsch Jain. As I mentioned, he's our Director of Government Affairs at Los Angeles Normal, and he's also the Director of Government Affairs at Caliva, one of the largest vertically integrated cannabis companies in California. Hirsch was previously the West Coast Director of Government Affairs at MedMen, which was the largest cannabis retail in the country, overseeing the company's work in California, Arizona, and Nevada. And before working in cannabis, Hirsch was government affairs manager at Airbnb in San Francisco, helping build the company's global policy team from 30 to 300 people. And prior to that, Hirsch was an engagement manager at McKinsey and Company in New York City, working in its public sector practice. And here's one of my favorite things that Hirsch has done, by the way. Hirsch has a BA in philosophy from UC Berkeley, which is where he began his cannabis activism by working as the cannabis lead in the campus public defender's office, defending students that were accused of cannabis violations by their university. Good job, Hirsch. He also has a JD from Harvard Law School, where his academic focus was the legal, social, and political impacts of the war on drugs. And so we're very honored to have him here and to learn from him today. Hirsch, thank you so much for preparing an update for us today. And I'd like to turn things over to you at this time to bring us up to speed on what happened in 2020.
Cool. Thanks so much, Ian. Hey guys, it's great to be with all of you again today. Today I'll be giving, just a pretty easy 10-minute legislative update focusing on what happened in 2020 and what we can expect in 2021. There's three main things that I'll be covering. The first is what happened in states across the country. Ian kind of mentioned, the ballot initiatives that passed, and I'm sure many of you have heard about that, and it's been talked to death. So I'm just going to quickly highlight those states, talk about when those states will come online, and also talk about an underappreciated topic, which is what those states, the impact that they have on some of their neighboring states. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to give is just a quick update on the growth in the California market, which is something that I think we're really excited about and which we can expect to continue into 2021. And then the third thing that I'll give is an update on federal legislation, what we can expect in 2021. So just those three things, what happened in other states, number one. Number two, what growth are we seeing in the California market? And three, what federal legislation can we anticipate in 2021? So to start with that first topic, what happened in states across the country, I'm sure you've all heard it a million times now that 4 different states voted to legalize cannabis for adult use. That's Arizona, Montana, New Jersey, and South Dakota. Obviously, that's super exciting. I'm sure you've heard it a million times that, the fact that even red states voted to legalize cannabis is exciting. So I think a couple of things that I will highlight is just timing about when we can expect adult use sales to begin in 2021. The first state that you're likely to see is Arizona. Sometime in mid-March, dispensaries that have an existing medical license will start to be able to sell adult use cannabis, which is really exciting. And I know a lot of the companies in Arizona are really excited to get this up and running before the 420 holiday, which will be a big celebration in Arizona. So that's one of the first states that you can expect to start adult use sales. Sales in New Jersey will start sometime this summer around June or July. So we still got a bit of a ways there, but the state legislature is just finalizing their enabling legislation, discussing things like how much of tax revenue will go to equity and when sales will begin. And Montana will start right around in that summer as well. And then finally, you'll have South Dakota, which doesn't really have much of an existing medical infrastructure. So I would bet that real sales there won't start until 2022. So still a ways out. So that's just quickly on timing. The other thing that I thought I'd mention when it comes to these state initiatives is just how powerful an impact that these states legalizing has on their neighbors. I think many of us have discussed, in these monthly meetings before, how big a deal it was that Illinois legalized starting on January 1st, because Illinois borders 6, or even I think 7 states. So, Iowa and Missouri and Kentucky and Indiana, and other states were really influenced by Illinois because their residents could just drive over the border, and it started legalization conversations in those states. And I think what is exciting is that these state initiatives, you'll see some of the same thing happening. So it's often mentioned that New Jersey may lead to a domino on the East Coast, with New Jersey and with New York, and Pennsylvania and Connecticut and Rhode Island legalizing. But, if you think about, say, like a state like Wyoming or a state like Idaho, right? Now those states are going to be surrounded by states that allow cannabis. If I take Idaho, it's just an island in between Washington and Oregon and Montana. Or if I take Wyoming, right, it's now going to border Montana and South Dakota that allow adult use cannabis. And so I think what is really exciting is that a lot of these states are going to impact their neighbors, and these islands of prohibition around the United States will start to wither. And I think that's honestly just as consequential as these states themselves moving forward. So that's a quick update on what's going around the country and what we can expect in 2021. I think a lot of good news there. The second thing that I'll mention, which I think is also good news, is just the continued growth we're seeing in the California market. There's been a lot of press about this in the last couple of weeks. So you've probably read that in Q3 2020, California generated $306 million in tax revenue between the excise tax, the cultivation tax, and the sales tax, compared to 170 million in Q3 of 2019. So again, just to compare those numbers, we went from 170 in Q3 2019 to 306 in Q3 2020, which is an 80% growth in tax revenue. So I think what you're starting to see is a lot of cities that passed ordinances a couple of years ago are having those stores come online, and that's reflected in the growth of the California market. Now, we still have a long way to go. As many of us on this call know, the California has an $8 billion unlicensed market and only a $4 billion licensed market. So the unlicensed market still comprises a majority of cannabis sales in the state, but it's just exciting to see the legal market start to get traction, which took almost 3 years since the adult use market opened, but slowly and surely we're getting there. A couple other things that I'll mention, as many of you know, in November, there were 35 different cannabis ballot measures on, the ballot in local cities across California. 32 of them passed. So that not only means that more cities are opening up, but it also shows you that all across California, in big cities and small towns and urban, suburban, and rural areas, people are opening up to cannabis and making cannabis a part of their economies. And so that gives you a really good sense of how the state is opening up. One or two final things that I'll say about California. One thing that makes me optimistic, and one thing that I'm at least a little concerned about. One thing that makes me optimistic is the state next year may consider increasing case pack value. So right now, delivery companies in California can have a maximum of $5,000 of product on them as they deliver to jurisdictions across California. The state is considering lifting that from 5,000 to 10,000, perhaps even higher. And one of the great things is that this will allow more cannabis deserts to be accessible by delivery companies, because if you can carry more product, you can scalably deliver to more areas, and there can be more delivery companies delivering to those areas, giving consumers more choice. And so I think that'll be another thing that will really help enable the growth of the legal market in California, is just allowing delivery operators to cover areas that otherwise would be uneconomical, just based on a more limited case pack value. The one thing that has me concerned in California, as I'm sure it does you guys, is the recent delivery lawsuit that came out a few weeks back. And in that delivery lawsuit, the court ruled that basically cities, if they wanted to, could seek to ban cannabis deliveries. It was sort of a challenge to the outside in rule in California. And there's a lot of complicated legal arguments, ways to read that judge's ruling. But I think one thing to note is that a lot of cities may feel emboldened to ban cannabis delivery because of the judge's ruling in that case a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's one thing that a lot of us have to keep our eye on, because in a lot of cities across California, one of the only ways that you can get safe, tested, legal cannabis is through delivery. And you can get any other legal product delivered to your house as an adult. It seems kind of ridiculous that you can't now that cannabis is legal. So that's one thing that I'm a little concerned about, and I think we all need to watch. The third and final thing that I'll note as part of my update is just federal legislation. So I think there's a few bills that have passed recently, and that will be taken up in the new year. One I'll mention is safe banking, which, as many of you know, has passed the House now a few times. That would allow banks to do business with cannabis companies. Unfortunately, the Senate hasn't taken up the bill, but I think the one sort of piece of good news is that next year, the most likely Senate banking chair is Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania. And now almost every major cannabis company in the country, some of the really big MSOs, I think like 5 or 6 of them have operations in Pennsylvania, I should say. So the Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey will be the Senate banking chair. Now TrueLeaf, Cresco, GTI, Curaleaf, like they're all in Pennsylvania. So hopefully they can put some pressure on him to move that bill forward. You guys may remember that Mike Crapo from Idaho is the current Senate banking chair, and given Idaho's cannabis politics, it's not really a surprise why that bill hasn't moved forward. So I think that's one thing to be excited about. The other thing, as many of us know, the MORE Act passed the House a week and a half ago, which is super exciting. It's the first time in American history that a chamber of Congress has voted to legalize cannabis. There's some things about the bill that weren't perfect. For example, the bill contained provisions on, limits that limited the ability of people with certain felonies to participate in the industry, which I think many of us would agree is sort of the opposite of equity. So when that bill passes again in the next Congress, I think it will need to be adjusted and improved in a certain way. But it just keeps on adding to the momentum in cannabis reform. I think the one challenge again with the MORE Act is that if Mitch McConnell remains the Senate Majority Leader, it'll be hard to move that bill forward. Which leads me to my last point, which is if Mitch McConnell remains the head of the Senate, perhaps what you might see after the House passes the MORE Act is Congress coalesce around a more, what the Republicans would consider a moderate solution, like the States Act. Again, I think the States Act is not perfect, right? It doesn't allow for interstate commerce, which a lot of us believe would be beneficial, but it would still be a step forward. So to summarize, those are some of the main pieces of legislation. Maybe the last thing I'll say is that, over the past few weeks, we have started to see research bills being passed that will sort of expand research into cannabis, which is something that's been prohibited since it's a Schedule I drug. We think we know a lot about cannabis now, but I think a few years from now, we'll look back and realize how much we didn't know. And so I think it's really exciting to see legislative efforts to incentivize and promote research into the cannabis plant that we know to be so therapeutically valuable and worthwhile. So that's my update, and thanks so much for your time.
Hirsch, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that update. Really a lot of interesting things going on there. And pretty clearly a lot of progress here in 2020 and a lot of exciting things to look forward to in 2021. So now I'd like to introduce you all to Eric Gopel. He's our Director of Veterans Affairs and also the founder of the Veterans Cannabis Coalition. Eric is an advocate and a policy professional focused on the intersection between veteran health and cannabis. Eric is a U.S. Army vet of the Iraq War, having served for 7 years and spending 6 of those in special operations. And after his military service, Eric worked as a defense contractor in Afghanistan before returning to school, where he attended the University of California, Berkeley, graduating with a BA in political science. During and after college, Eric worked in various policy roles in Washington, D.C., from a think tank to the Senate staff to a nonprofit on national security and veterans affairs issues. At his time at the American Legion, the country's largest wartime veteran association, Eric developed organizational initiatives and policies aimed at combating the opioid epidemic. Spurred on by his drug policy work and realizing the importance of making cannabis available as a medicine, in 2018, along with fellow Iraq War veteran Bill Ferguson, he founded the Veterans Cannabis Coalition. So the Veterans Cannabis Coalition is an effort dedicated to ending cannabis prohibition and driving the research and development of cannabis-based treatments. Since its founding on Capitol Hill, VCC has advocated for the first cannabis reform bill to pass congressional committee, the VA Medical Cannabis Research Act, and testified before the House of Representatives Small Business Committee on the harms of prohibition and the promise of veteran entrepreneurship. In California, VCC established one of the first legally compliant cannabis compassionate care programs under state law SB34 and is actively building a support network of patient home growers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Eric. And Eric, if you would be so kind, as I know you've prepared some comments for us, educate us on SB34 if you would, and tell us what you're doing to advance this wonderful legislation here in California.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you, Hirsch. I thought that was a great overview of a lot of very positive developments for the cannabis movement legislatively, which, in my opinion, has always been the only way that we ever really truly cement gains, whether it especially when it comes to securing our rights as patients and as home growers and as individuals to essentially use cannabis. Also, I need to punch up my introduction because I forced you to read something that's pretty lengthy, so I need to cut that down a little bit. So yeah, I think Ian, you did a great job of sort of introducing SB34. It's the the Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary Compassion Act, or excuse me, not Compassion, just Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary Act, and it specifically was introduced by Scott Wiener back in 2018. Was initially passed in 2018, and then pocket vetoed by Jerry Brown at the end of his administration, before being resurrected in 2019 and passed and signed into law by Gavin Newsom, and then going into effect in March of this year. So SB34 basically creates a legal pathway for cannabis companies to donate cannabis products to eligible patients without and in the process be excused certain taxes. Before SB34 went into effect, effectively, if you as a cannabis licensee wanted to donate product, whatever product you wanted to donate, you had to pay the full retail markup, which was definitely a disincentive. Now, SB34 does not necessarily create any incentive per se, because it does not create a tax cut or a tax deduction for companies who give away product. However, it just makes it easier to do so by, again, excusing the cultivation, use, or excise tax, depending on the licensee who's donating. And then beyond that, it provides a way for cannabis operators to engage in one of the foundational pieces of the cannabis legalization movement, which has been compassion for patients, especially in California. I mean, the bill is named after two of the sort of legendary cannabis and patient advocates in the state, Dennis Peron and Brownie Mary Rathbun, who were some of the key members involved in making Proposition 215, which was the medical marijuana law that set the stage for what we're now seeing as a national legalization movement. California in 1996 became the first state to ever legalize the medical use of cannabis, and since then, we've led the way, and we continue to lead the way in ensuring that compassion is not an afterthought in the rush to commercialization. So SB34 is basically a kind of a down payment on that promise to patients that these laws moved forward because on your backs, essentially, right? And the most critically in need patients definitely still need help, and we know that because of the tax structure and because of local control in California, that there are still large sections, or that it's still cannabis is largely inaccessible for a lot of patients. And that, unfortunately, is also a major driver of the illicit market. Cannabis patients, kind of by definition, are some of the largest cannabis consumers. They're also the most price sensitive. So if you price them out of the market, they're going to find other places, for their cannabis, and it's not going to be, legally. And that puts them in a very poor position, because it forces them to, and I'm not saying, obviously people have had plugs and people who have hooked them up with cannabis for a very long time, long before any of these laws have gone into effect, and will continue to do so, for the foreseeable future. But we also know that there's issues in the market with at least truth in advertising, people being sold hemp, and being passed off as cannabis, or contaminated carts, or any number of issues that arise outside of regulated markets. Now, what is the best way to bring patients back into the regulated market, which they are the least likely to patronize? Compassionate donations through SB34, I think, is basically that answer. And in the process of again, following through on the obligation we have to ensure that patients have access to cannabis, you are also in the process undermining the illicit market, because you're taking money out of their hands, money that patients would otherwise be spending there. Now, once SB34, SB34 is still mostly in its infancy. That there's only a handful of organizations throughout the state who are actively working on developing this, but there has been a lot of very positive momentum in just since the law went into effect back in March. And I'll take this opportunity to recognize Dear Cannabis, which is a group of folks in the industry who are volunteering their time to basically connect the dots between cultivators and extractors and packagers and testing labs to bring entirely new product into the legal market, specifically destined for patients. And that product is FSO, which is one of my favorite cannabis formulations as an advocate, because it's one of the products that I've seen consistently deliver results for veterans and other patients who are dealing with very severe and complex injuries. So making, and they're bringing in 3,600 plus grams of FSO, full spectrum oil. Thank you, Ian. Into the legal market, and that's all through SB34. They found a cultivator, Sweet Sister Family Farms, who donated 200 pounds of trim. They went to their existing relationship to Emerald Bay Extracts, who then turned that 200 pounds of trim into 3,600 grams of concentrate, of FSO concentrate. And then, with packaging and retail partners, and with Emerald Bay Extracts as the distributor partner, they are now going to be distributing that FSO throughout the state. What we're doing with LA Normal, we're very much in the beginning and early stages of basically starting to connect the product that exists and the support that exists within the industry to patients. And we're not trying to go out and recreate patient groups throughout the greater LA area. We much prefer to partner with existing community groups and who are open or hopefully pro cannabis and interested in sort of the education that donations, as well as the education that comes along with it, which are going to be provided by in an effort led by board members Elizabeth Mack and Dr. Swathi Varanasi. Combining education and donations and providing a real service to the community, like that's what SB34 makes possible. And the industry has a great opportunity to be a part of all that, and be an essential part, right? Essentially, without their donations, it's really we have nothing to give away, and we can educate all day long, but without a sort of steady supply of compassionate materials to donate, we're still gonna be struggling for the foreseeable future to overcome like the accessibility and affordability issues that patients are suffering with. So until we get like real tax relief and some sort of more protected status for patients where their medicine isn't taxed in the way that it is, and just eliminating some of the taxes would bring patients back in. But so long as legal cannabis is 2 or 3 times what it would cost in the illicit market for the similar amount, patients are going to have a hard time doing that math, and especially in a time when so many folks are hurting financially. They're going to they still have a need for cannabis, and for those who still are seeking it out, they're compelled to go to their cheapest sources, which are not always the safest. So what we have coming up shortly here is going to be a test run in an LA Normal supported SB34 donation with a group called Compassionate Healing that's hosted by the American Legion Post 397 in Monterey Park. It's an existing patient group that's been around for the last couple of years, and it's had a steady membership over that time. But they're like a lot of groups, they offer peer support, but they would love to offer more. And with the help of LA Normal, and of course with the assistance of the American Legion Post commander, we're going to be able to do so. So we're going to be helping those patients, not all veterans, but mostly veterans, but also including some very exceptional patient advocates who are leading that group. They're all on track to be supplied with their first SB34 donation come December 20th, so this Sunday. So that's going to be sort of that first step toward accomplishing this broader mission of creating these kind of like sites throughout greater LA, partnering with existing community groups, partnering with industry allies to create supply, then find the demand, and then try to do our best to meet that demand wherever it exists. Obviously we're never going to fully satisfy what patients need. That's largely going to be this is still essentially charitable work, but on the basis of this, I think we're going to have the ability to truly argue for lower taxes, to make it easier for patients and consumers to access cannabis, because while lower taxes certainly benefit the industry, they definitely benefit us, because any tax the industry gets, it just gets passed on to us. And as cannabis is a medicine, and even as a quote unquote recreational substance, far superior to alcohol or tobacco or anything else available, this should not be something that is only available to a handful of of people with means, right? Like the more people that have access to cannabis, the better, the better off we're all going to be. And I think California has the ability to kind of lead that, to sort of shift back in that direction, and LA Normal, will hopefully play their part in leading it there. So with that, thank you, Ian, and back to you.
Eric, thank you so much. Can I just add on something to what you were talking about? This compassionate care program, it's so important, and I just can't tell you what the faces look like of the veterans that I've seen that are the recipients of this program. I've been now down to a couple of your events, Eric, most recently on Monday at our friends at Cannabis Works. And when you see these veterans coming in and, showing their ID and like walking out with a bag of medicine, I mean, the look on their faces just says it all. This stuff is expensive. And it seems pretty clear that that they need it more than that they want it. It's real medicine, and they're just walking out so thankful, and it just really lifted up my heart to see that. So thank you for everything that you're doing there, Eric. It's an amazing program, and we're so happy to be behind you on it.
Thank you so much, Ian.
So let's see. So next, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Swathi. She's our Director of Science at Los Angeles Normal, and she is a pharmacist specializing in integrative health and cannabis. She serves as a bilingual medical consultant for CBD botanical companies, a natural medicines educator, a clinical researcher, and a multimedia content contributor for print and online publications. Emphasizing an evidence-based health and wellness approach, Dr. Swathi is passionate about empowering everyone to be the best, most authentic version of themselves. Dr. Swathi is the co-founder and the first ever resident of the PGY1 Integrative Health Pharmacy Residency Program, in which she completed her training at an independent natural pharmacy and HIV clinic in Los Angeles. Emphasizing I'm repeating myself there. As a healthcare disruptor, Dr. Swathi looks for opportunities to break barriers and challenge her Western-trained colleagues to think beyond the conventional scope of their practice. So, Dr. Swathi, without further ado, I'd like to bring you on camera, and if you would be so kind as to introduce us to your special guest today, and our meeting sponsor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. So I am so happy to be here as the Director of Science and introduce Element Apothic. It is a brand that is local in LA and really dedicated to consumer education when it comes to cannabis, as well as providing the most clean, safe, and well-executed I got cut off. Well-executed products. So I am very excited to introduce you to the CEO, Davina.
Hi, I forget to unmute. So it's really great to be here today. And thank you, Dr. Swathi, for introducing me. I'd like to share a presentation, just a little bit about Element Apothic and what we're doing. So is that possible? Let me see. I think the participant screen sharing is off. All right, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, we see you now.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so Element Apothic, it's really exciting. We actually just launched. We've been working for the last year to really bring our products to market. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this story about Element Apothic and how our products actually started and where we're at today. But we're really focused on helping, as I think so many of us, especially in this meeting, to really elevate the industry and bring products that really can help impact people, and not just products, but have transparency and safety and quality, which is some of the problems that have really plagued the industry and continues to be a problem, as we all have experienced. And my story with cannabis started obviously a long time ago, which is why I'm just really so passionate to be in this space. My dad, building off of what was just talked about, was actually a Vietnam veteran, and he had severe PTSD. He served, many years in Vietnam, and he would tell me over and over again that if it wasn't for this plant, he didn't know how he could walk outside the door. He didn't know how he could sleep. I remember even being at school, and they said, raise your hand if you have family members that smoke marijuana or do drugs like cocaine. And the fact that they put them together to me was so upsetting. I went home and explained to my dad what happened, and I was worried they would possibly arrest him, and because he grew, and he also grew for neighbors and friends also. And he told me that, explained really about this plant and how it continued to help him and so many others. And so that fast forward to my life, I've continued to use cannabis and shared it with friends and told the story of how it could help people. And about a year ago, I had the opportunity to really look at Element Apothic as an opportunity and to launch a new business, which I think is exciting. My great aunt was diagnosed with several medical conditions and had symptoms that could have been potentially treated by Western medicine, but they also caused other severe side effects and were hurting her. She was partially bedridden. So she used her spare time to learn about plant-based medicine, became certified in essential oils, and started creating products that actually led her to be out of bed, and it helped her and countless others. She created, I think, 40 custom formulations. Someone would come to her and say, hey, I have this or I have that, and she would make something for them. So we really started in a kitchen, not a lab. But what we did is continued from that and partnered with our medical advisory team and really looked to create products that really help people and weren't going to hurt them. And so that brings us to our products and our company, and we really focus on these pillars of clean and safe products, transparency to the point that we're working with a blockchain company so that all of our ingredients will be able to be realized where they are sourced from, and have our COAs that have details on every single ingredient, because consumers, as we all know, really deserve to have that understanding of what they're putting on their body and in their body. We continue with our medical oversight with our incredible medical advisory team. And we're looking at the products of not just CBD, because so many companies are just putting CBD, throwing it on the shelf and charging way more than they should for the products. But we look at all of the ingredients and include plant-based ingredients and other minor cannabinoids that really can help make our products as effective as possible, because people really need this product to help them, whether it's for their skin or other internal things that they're going through. And our biggest thing is really our never ever promise that we commit to never ever use any harmful or toxic ingredients in the products we create. I think there's like 1,800 banned ingredients that are in products in the US. There are products that are banned in Europe and Canada. So there's a problem, and a lot of the companies, and I don't want to put down a lot of the companies that are in the space, because there are companies that are really trying to do good, and I really admire those companies, but there's also a lot of companies that are causing these FDA warnings and continuing to give bad press, and we all have a responsibility to lift up this industry and to show consumers that it's safe to trust products. One of our biggest things also is our commitment to education. We all know as it continues to be a topic that a lot really does remain to be done with education. Consumers have such a lack of education. It's something that Dr. Swathi is our Chief Scientific Officer, and we're really focused on building a platform through blog posts, through educational content that's going to help. And not even for us, it's for everybody in this space. It's for all consumers, whether they end up buying products from us or not, that we all can contribute and really help, again, lift up this community. So just a little bit brief about our medical advisory team, and as I said, all of our products, and I think a lot of companies are starting to shift to this and really looking at the products and incorporating medical advisory teams or medical practitioners to help formulate the products so they're as safe as possible. And part of what we've done, and I really do hope other companies continue to follow, and some are already leading the charge, is getting these different types of certifications to show the consumer that you can trust us, and not just our products, but we're also trying to do good. We're looking at certified B Corporation, and we give 1% back for the planet, because again, we all have a responsibility to help lift each other up and to really make a difference. some of the products specifically that, here's our plug anyways, that we carry is that we have two different tinctures. Again, we're utilizing a variation of combinations of the minor cannabinoids as well as CBD, a balm, lotion, and a face serum. And how can you support us, and how can we support you if you purchase our products? And if you want to share with us products that you have or that you recommend, we love to do partnerships and giveaways and really help promote each other. We're doing one now with 2 other CBD brands. And even though some of our products are similar, there's enough differences that we want to expose all of our community to the products that we offer. We're building wholesale and retail partnerships if anybody's interested in that. We have brand ambassadors, and we'd love to work with more content creators. So again, we can really utilize our platform to provide education to people. And a special that we have right now, if anyone's still looking for that last minute holiday gift, is 30% off of site-wide and free shipping. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'd love to support LA Normal. I remember going to the meetings a couple of years ago when we could actually meet in person, and I really always found it so informational and helpful. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and I'd love to see how we can all work together to make things better for everybody.
Thank you so much, Davina, for being here and for supporting us. And everybody, please do go take a look at their website. I dropped a link to their website in the chat window. So please do support them back because they're supporting us. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great presentation too. We were commenting earlier how much we all love your branding too, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I think we really tried to, it's clean and it feels safe. And that's the message that we wanted to relate to the consumer. So thank you.
It's very nice. Thank you so much. So now I'd like to introduce you all to Luis Rivera. He's our Director of Social Equity here at Los Angeles Normal. And Luis is also the founder and the CEO of Collective Strategies, a certified small business and minority owned business and small local business enterprise. It's a lot of business qualifications. But this LA Collective Strategies was created to provide social, economic, and workforce development for marginalized communities in key underrepresented industries. Collective Strategies is committed to promoting fairness, justice, opportunity, and equity in the design and implementation of public policy enforcement and the economic and workforce opportunities. For the people and by the people. Luis strongly believes that it is the responsibility of the government and the corporate sector to provide economic access and opportunities. And I agree with you, Luis. He has a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in public administration from California State University of Los Angeles. And he also has over 15 years of experience in the public sector and recently served as Mayor Eric Garcetti's community business manager in the Office of Economic Development and as the South Los Angeles area. So Luis, thank you so much for preparing some information for us today, and also for bringing a special guest along with you. So if you'd like to take it from here and let us know what is social equity and introduce us to your guest. And social equity, by the way, for everybody listening, this is something that's really, really important to us here in Los Angeles. And Luis is going to explain it to us and let us know what it is. So listen up here. Thank you, Luis.
Hello. Can you hear me? Great. Well, first of all, thank you, Ian. I wish I would have prepared a smaller intro. I'm with Eric. I did not know you were going to go that extensive.
You guys both have impressive credentials, so
I didn't want to
tell everybody. I have to tell everybody where this education's coming from. You all do.
Great. So before I share my screen, start giving you guys some updates on social equity program in California and here in Los Angeles specifically, I'll introduce myself. My name is Luis Rivera. I'm glad to be now the Director of Social Equity here for Normal LA, and glad to be part of this great organization and leading forward, really what we can do in the cannabis industry together. About 2-3 years ago, I started what's called Social Equity LA, and really working on helping people in the cannabis industry get connected. It's about access, inclusion, and diversity, making sure that true intent of the program that was created here first in Los Angeles and then really adopted statewide in 2018. That we're really making sure we can fulfill the true intention. So basically we do that through policy development, working on, making sure all the policies are in place and that really being implemented effectively. Business development, which is key, right? We all want a piece of this growing industry, and thank God that the city, or thank the leaders here say in state that created the program and allowed access, but we still need a lot of support for our minority business owners, specifically around education, business development, real estate, and really getting into an industry that we all don't know what we're doing. And lastly, the workforce, without the workforce really being activated and really making sure that those, people that were incarcerated, minorities, all of us that suffer from the war on drugs aren't in this industry, then, we'll just continue to get left behind. So with that, sharing some updates here from, I guess, the city and the state. So let me start off with some quick updates from the state level. Today, actually, I just received a message from them. The state, has implemented their grant program. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, Ian? You're good?
Yep, we see.
Great. So, they're actually this month accepting grant applications for the local jurisdictions to apply for the equity grant. The state has, through the GoBiz department, the Business of Economic Development Governor's Office, has provided a certain amount of allocated revenue from the taxes to go back into the community. So this is, I believe, the third year that the funding has been allocated, and the application is just open. So that's important for all of us statewide, because this is only available, first of all, to local jurisdictions that are actually implementing programs, and not necessarily anyone that's looking to implement, or nonprofits or private entities. So, but really giving our local city the opportunity to put more funds in to this program. With that, this is kind of a breakdown of last year's equity funding, where it went. As you see, LA got 6 million. Don't tell me where it's went so far. I don't know, but I'm sure we're all planning to. And, the city has done a good job of rectifying their program to really, have a good plan in 2021, and helping our equity applicants with both, funneling these grants, this equity money down into personal grants, and as well as TA for existing applicants. So that's just kind of broadly on a state level. I just kind of on some of the funding things going on here, but let me move into briefly a little more of what's going on locally. Give me a second here. So last month, the city had a commission meeting. The City of LA Department of Cannabis Regulation, the oversight is done by a commission, five-man person, woman appointed commission. And right now, they meet every month. The executive director provides some updates. So I advise you all to please sign up to the DCR, get their notices, and read the reports for you guys, especially if you're actively involved in the Los Angeles market. To date, they've allocated 418 commercial licenses. And you see the numbers here: 184 retail storefronts, 222 non-manufacturing, 220 and non-volatile manufacturing and distribution, 213 cultivation, and 12 testing. So the city has allocated or has authorized 189 licenses. For the most part, that has happened in the last 2 rounds that the city has broken down. Actually, the last 3 rounds, the city has broken down their licensing into 3 rounds, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So these are the phase 1 and phase 2. Now switching over briefly, as we have a, sorry about this, still working out technical issues here, is this last round. So the city has pretty much started the next round, which is the phase 2 round. And that is going to, has allowed, I'm sorry, 249 current applications. So on October 10th, I'm sorry, on October 20th, the city opened up their application for what's the phase 3, their next round for delivery, which is specifically for social equity applicants. You have to have been pre-approved as a social equity applicant to get a delivery license, as well as non-volatile manufacturing and testing as well, and distribution. To date, they received, this is as of last month, November 19th, they received 243 applications. About 120 of those have been invoiced according to their last update, and are waiting to be paid and continue through the process. With that, there's also what's known as a PCN process that has been concurrently going on, which is a public convenience or necessity. In LA, our licenses are restricted to capacity within community plans that's divided within the city. So we have filled certain uses, such as cultivation, and in this case specifically retail. So the city has allowed individuals, if they seem fit a public necessity or convenience, to submit a request to allow additional retails to be built or licensed within those communities. These are the communities. They've got 69 applications, and this month they're invoicing those 69. And starting January 1st, they will be opening up this public convenience and necessity process for not only retail in the capacity in these community plans that have reached undue concentration, but also volatile manufacturing, as well as cultivation again. So most people aren't really aware of that, but starting January 1st, the city has said, whether they hold their timeline, they will be accepting public convenience and necessity requests for those specific licenses. That's really, the big update here in Los Angeles. Really looking forward to working together with the team here in LA Normal to really push through some of the policy recommendations and some of the things that are going to be needed for our delivery licenses, our retail licenses, and all the different licenses that our social equity applicants are applying for now. So lastly, I'll leave it with this point before I pass it on to Jamani, or have him have his video play quickly. Is this December 19th, this weekend, there is a retail workshop for those that are part of the round 1 that were approved. There's 200 additional licenses that were approved for retail type 10. Phase 3 during this last phase 3. So 200 additional social equity applicants will be coming online, retail licenses, in this next few months. So the city is holding a workshop, which would probably be good for anyone who's interested in applying now or in the future, to look at and watch and get some information on kind of where they're going with those 200, and as they look to open up the next 150 licenses for lottery. Jamani was an applicant. I'm not sure if he was able to make it, but we had helped a few individuals, including Jamani Redway, who was actually one of the first applicant to get his application in. And he wasn't here in person, but I wanted to share a quick minute video of some of his experience before getting into the industry, and this opportunity that he now has as being a pre-approved applicant for one of the first 200 social equity retail licenses.
Was a public school teacher before I went to graduate school. This is back in '05. I'm coming back from Oregon on my way back to my apartment to clean my apartment out, and I'm speeding in a car that's not really mine because I'm driving a long distance. I don't want to take my car all the way up there. But Ventura Police pulls me over, sees a Crown Royal bag in my passenger seat, says, "Hey, what is that? Are you drunk? Or is that Crown Royal?" I said, "No." I said, "Oh, well, what is that?" And so, needless to say, yeah, I got a conviction for cannabis possession back in '05. I mean, I have a law degree. I have a master's in business administration. You think it would be easy for me to find a job, on paper, so to speak. But when you have, a cannabis conviction in your back pocket, people do the background check and they see things. And I'm really excited about this opportunity to be in this industry from a leadership standpoint, because it's an opportunity to give back, and it's an opportunity to be a part of something that I love and I enjoy, and I want to help to spread the good news about.
All right. Well, with that,
I'm David Scobie. I'm the executive dean of the New School for General Studies, Milano, the New School for Management.
What I wanted to show. Hello?
Yeah, was that another video starting, or?
No, I'm sorry. That was the next video playing apparently. But thank you very much. I mean, that was Jamani, and that was our presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing that presentation from Jamani. It's really good to understand. He makes a great point. He's very, very well credentialed, education-wise, and struggling with finding a job because of his cannabis conviction. So it's crazy, right? So this is why it's so important to get in there and support social equity, right? We have people that are in jail today and people that have criminal records that are being excluded from the industry or for participating. And that's crazy because we're giving out licenses to big companies to go ahead and sell cannabis. So there should be nobody in trouble for selling cannabis anymore, right? So Luis, thank you so much for all that you're doing with Social Equity LA. We're really very thrilled to be working with you and to help push forward on those initiatives and bring some equity to our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to open it up for any question and answers. If anybody has any questions for any of our team, throw it into the chat window, unmute yourself, go ahead and shout it out. And I'd actually like to ask all of our team here to unmute and start their video so everybody can see who you are, and maybe we have some questions for anyone on the team.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Luis, and thank you, Eric and Hirsch. Amazing presentations, as always, and I'm just so proud to be a member and to contribute, and I'm looking forward to 2021.
Yeah, let's get this year behind us.
Yeah, I second that. Great job, everyone. I mean, great presentation, great year. 2021 is going to be huge for us, and yeah, I really can't wait. I'm really excited. So I appreciate it. Thank you all.
We have some amazing programs really being driven by Eric on our Compassionate Care Program and Luis on our Social Equity Program. These are amazing things, and look for more education from us on the medical side with Elizabeth and Dr. Swathi, and policy side from Hirsch and his team. So really a lot of exciting stuff coming in 2021. Please don't forget that we are an all volunteer organization, so we do appreciate your help. Come to our website, lanorml.org. Check it out. If you're at all able to donate anything, we super appreciate that. And that's all we have for you in 2020.
Yeah, link is in the chat as well. Sharon put the link for PayPal, so check it out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming today. And we'll see you next year. We'll be right here.
Happy New Year.
All right.